Well, we had to work for it, but we're still here, baby. We're still here. Yes. Let's go on to the next one.
The scenes at York Lions Stadium last night. Hello, welcome to the CPL Newsroom presented by Volkswagen. I'm Charlie O'Connor-Clarke next to Mitchell Tierney here on this Thursday, October the 24th, as we are a day into the 2024 Canadian Premier League playoffs. And Mitch, what a night it was yesterday in Toronto at York Lions Stadium as York United beat Pacific FC 2-0 for their first ever win in the playoffs in the fourth versus fifth game to open up this postseason. They're moving on to Sunday's quarterfinal against Atlético Ottawa, and we will get to that very shortly. But we have to start with that game last night. Mitch, you and I were both there. It was a little bit of a chilly night at York, certainly for those of us that were outside for a lot of the game. But, Mitch, just tell me what you saw from your perspective in this game, because it seems like a pretty impressive example from York United of how to win a knockout football game.
Yeah, I think from a match standpoint, I think it was pretty clear at the start of the game that they came out and maybe the occasion got to them or just the way Pacific kind of came in with, the momentum that really they were carrying from their strong finish to the season and from playing so many do or die games back to back in the past few months that, it felt like Pacific were more up for this, but then they weather that storm. Thomas Vincenzini makes a good save on a chance that, Moses Dyer realistically should have scored. And anytime a team doesn't capitalize on a chance like that in a playoff match, you always wonder, is this going to come back to bite them? And it absolutely did. I think really just from York, obviously it was taking their chance at a really good time early in the second half, and just how much of a momentum deflator that was for Pacific. And then anytime you can kind of have that walk-off, moment like Moba Booley did in stoppage time, it's always special. The final whistle of a playoff game is special, but if you can get that second goal and at that moment, okay, we've won this, and you do it in such an emphatic, exciting fashion, that was such a special moment for this club. And again, it was really a playoff game. The chances incredibly few and far between. I think it was 0.34 expected goals to 0.33 for Pacific, which if you look at the 113 matches that have been played in all competitions in the CPL this season, those are in the bottom 15 of expected goals numbers. So wasn't a lot to really get excited about in terms of clear-cut chances for either team, but that's going to be playoffs. It's going to be, can you take yours? York take two very good chances. Pacific can't take theirs, and one team's going home, one team's going to the nation's capital.
Absolutely, and that's kind of the way things go in a playoff game, isn't it? It's felt from the start a bit like, sometimes you see a lot of finals in football be a little bit cagey at the start, teams trying to work each other out. York start this game shockingly without Brian Wright on the pitch. They go with Moba Booley and Denis Selanovic, who had been injured for a long time. And I don't think it started for this team in several weeks, if not months. But he comes in.
I want to say June 1st. It was either June 1st or July 1st. So
it sounds right. It sounds right. I believe that we can check that in a second. But to go with something as bold as that, and then you see in the first half, maybe it is clear that there's something missing up front for York. They kind of can't find that killer instinct. There's also maybe a bit of a gap in midfield. I don't know. It just felt like a York team that was kind of content to absorb some pressure and some early waves of Pacific. But because Pacific, they have a lot of midfielders injured to start this game, right? Cedric Toussaint's hurt, Pierre Lamoth is hurt, Marco Dominguez is hurt. So they go with Sean Young and Stephen Yates in midfield and play four strikers in Moses Dyer, Dario Zanata, Ryan Moore, and Adonijah Reed. So it's two very, very different setups for these teams, and you see they're kind of canceling each other out a little bit in the first half, but then the second half is kind of where that moment comes in. I think York were the more confident team going into halftime, and that's kind of what a lot of their players and staff talked about. Selanovic said after the game they went into halftime feeling like they were going to win, and then they come out of the break and 2 minutes after halftime they've got the ball in the back of the net. A really well taken goal, by the way. A pretty good second phase set piece. If you watch the replay, it's Baldissimo winning the ball in the box, playing it back out to Cordova. Cordova hitting it first time with a really, really good delivery, and then Osvaldo Leon just getting above his man and heading the ball really impressively into the net. But Mitch, I'd want to talk quickly about what this moment is for York United as a club. It's been quite the year for them. You think about where they were at the start of the year. New ownership had come in after they were under league management last year, and the future was very uncertain. New management comes in with the Pascal brothers. They make a coaching change midway through the season. So many turbulent moments for this club, so many ups and downs. And now here they are hosting a game in an incredible atmosphere. I think the best atmosphere I've ever seen at York Lions Stadium, certainly since York United have started playing there. And they come in, they win this playoff game. Just Mitch, you've been along for a lot of the ride with York as well. Just how big a moment is that for this club?
Yeah, I think one of my big takeaways is we've seen so many of these potential moments in the Canadian Premier Leagues for clubs, and they maybe haven't gone their way. Like I think back to Halifax's first home playoff game last year, where it's a fantastic atmosphere. There's all these incredible moments, and then they get shut out. You think of the final at TD Place Stadium for Atlético Ottawa. 15,000 fans are there. They don't score a goal. And, you could even go back to Forge's first home final and again, nice atmosphere. They don't score a goal. So to have York United, in the biggest game by far in club history, go out, get a win, give their fans all these moments to celebrate. I think that was absolutely massive for this club. And again, I think even if, going into this game, all the players and staff talked about how historic of a season this had been for York United, how they'd taken so many steps forward on and off pitch, record home wins, record points overall. Everything was a club record this season. But if they didn't have that one signature victory, I think in the playoffs, I feel like this season still would have been a little bit disappointing, especially with how good they've been at their very highest in this CPL campaign. So yeah, I think this was a monumental moment for a club. And I think most importantly, it feels like one that can be replicated and will be replicated over the next few years. Like this doesn't feel like an anomaly of any sort. This feels like it's something that they've been building towards, and something that, now that they've had a taste of that home playoff football, I think we're going to see this more often over the next few years. And the games are going to be even more important than they were in a 4th, 5th place match on Wednesday.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, speaking of that atmosphere, we did talk to their captain, Mo Babuli, after the game. We got lots of reaction for this game. We're going to roll through the whole show, but I want to start by hearing from the second goal scorer, the man who iced it, Mo Babuli, because he spoke to me after the game, and here's what he had to say. Post-game reaction brought to you by Allstate, joined by Mo Babuli of York United after the first playoff win in club history. Mo, how did that one feel?
Yeah, it definitely felt good. It's nice to be a part of something that's growing, and we're all ecstatic. We're just looking forward to the next game now.
You scored that second goal to kind of seal us. Have you ever heard a pop like that in this stadium before?
In this stadium, no. And it's good. It's exciting, and hopefully that's something that the club wants to build on, and hopefully we have these beautiful fans out every time now.
You guys now go to Ottawa for that quarterfinal. Just to start with the game itself, how excited are you guys to be moving on in the playoffs and have this chance? You're 3 wins away now from a trophy.
Yeah, I mean, we knew it was going to be a tough road. We knew we were going to have to battle a little bit more because we dropped some points in the season, but we're excited. We're looking for the journey, and all we can do is put our all and see what happens.
I got to ask you about Atlético Ottawa. There's a little recent history between these clubs. Their coach called you guys, he thinks, the weakest team in the playoffs. How excited are you guys to go and show them that that's not the case?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to get involved with that argument or beef or whatnot, but we played our game. We've got some W's against them this year, and they've had a hard time dealing with us, so hopefully we can keep that up and keep the same energy and continue scoring against them.
York United take on Atlético Ottawa in the quarterfinal this Sunday after beating Pacific FC tonight at York Lions Stadium. Mo, thanks. Mo taking the high road on this one, but a bit of a hint to what we're going to have to get to later in the show when we do talk about that York and Atlético Ottawa quarterfinal, which will be a lot of fun. But Mitch, I think we need to eulogize Pacific here quickly. fifth consecutive year in the playoffs, but this year they're not able to advance beyond that fourth, fifth game. I'm trying to think. No, I was going to say I think it's the first year they haven't won a game in the playoffs, but they didn't win in their semifinal against Atlético Ottawa in 2022. But still Pacific's, I believe, shortest tenure in the playoffs in their 5 years making it. Mitch, it was, in some respects an accomplishment for them to get to the postseason, considering where they'd been at certain points of the season. But where do you think you fall if you're a Pacific fan after this one? How disappointed are you?
I think you're disappointed. I think the team is disappointed in the manner in which they went out, because you were coming into this game playing the most confident football we've seen this team play all season, really. A season of really, really huge ups and downs, and some real downs where it felt like they might end this season at the bottom of the table. And I think they were there for at least a week, and not too long ago, and failing to score all these kinds of things, and then they go on this incredible run to make the playoffs. Again, they're playing exciting football, they're scoring, and then they come into this game, and yeah, it looked a little tentative, especially when early on in that game, like you see how easy it was, one ball over the top, they catch York off, and Moses Dyer's in behind and nearly scores. Like, that felt like something they would be able to maybe replicate, or at least try a little bit more, but there wasn't maybe that boldness and that aggressiveness to take the game. And James Merriman said after the game, it was there for the taking, but you have to go take it in these situations. And they didn't do that. And then, like you said, once York were able to get to halftime, like, they had all the momentum at that point, because they're like, okay, Pacific's thrown their punch. We've absolutely dodged it. They've done no damage whatsoever. Now we're going to come counter punch. And at that point, yeah, it was just, it just wasn't the intensity or the focus that you would have hoped from this Pacific side in a playoff game. And, we've seen performances like this throughout the season from them, and that's a big reason why they were the fifth place team in the fourth versus fifth playoff game. But to see it in a playoff, situation is really disappointing. I think, for this group that generally is so good in knockout football.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us probably might have slightly favored Pacific over York going into this game, just because of the fact that they've been there before in playoff football a little bit more often. They've got a little bit more of a track record of winning these games. But I mean, you look at the way this game went, it's just the one shot on target for Pacific, and that's the Moses Dyer chance you mentioned in the 12th minute of this game. And that's, in some ways, kind of the story of the season for Pacific, just not being able to create those chances consistently enough. On the season as a whole, they're one of just two teams, them and Valor, that averaged less than one non-penalty expected goal per game. They had the second fewest in the entire Canadian Premier League, and that's just kind of an indicator of how difficult it was at times for Pacific to create chances and to get into those dangerous areas. And that was the case again last night, especially in the second half. Pacific had plenty of the ball. They were buzzing all around the attacking third. They just couldn't get it to that final spot. It was sometimes the same crosses coming in that, just at times it looked like a team that didn't quite know how they were going to find their goal. But obviously they're a team that had to fight and claw and scrap their way to get into the playoffs. And we saw that with those last two games of the season, to win at York just 2 weeks ago, and then to beat Forge in the monsoon rain at home to get themselves into that playoffs was impressive. But by the time they got here, they were just a little bit battered and bruised. They didn't, they didn't have a lot of gas left in the tank. They didn't have a lot that they could bring off the bench, to be honest. And then that kind of shows in the fact they only made 2 substitutions in this game with the season on the line. But, it might have been just one hurdle too many for the specific team. And it's been a bit of a tough year. But to wrap us up with them, we're going to hear from a couple of, familiar faces from their camp. Their head coach, James Merriman, spoke to Kristen Jack on OneSoccer shortly after full time. And here were his final thoughts on that game and the season.
with Pacific FC boss James Merriman. James, your season ends tonight. What's your overall thoughts?
It's pretty raw. I think it's disappointing. That being said, nobody thought we would be here. Everybody wrote us off. So I'm proud of the team and the group for coming together and pushing into this match. But I think a little bit more of the same today. Unfortunately, from us, some of our problems this season, you could see today. We can only learn, improve, and keep growing. But for sure, we want more. As a team, as an organization, we want more. So it's disappointing match for us.
What happened in the beginning of the second half? Because it seemed like that 3 or 4 minutes where you gave away the foul and then shut off was really the defining factor of a very close game.
Yeah, I mean, we came out a little bit slow out of the tunnel here. The way the second half started, we didn't look ready. This is something that we just spoke about before coming out, and they took advantage of it. I thought maybe that pushes us to respond, and you see more. But I still think we didn't play with enough urgency. We didn't attack. We weren't decisive enough to go to goal, and they waited for their chance. They took a second goal and finished the game, so it's difficult to take.
I know it's raw, but I appreciate your time. If you can put into words, what is the aim now for this club in the off-season to get back to where you know that you belong, winning championships, contending for finals?
Yeah, we need to improve. We need to look at everything, first myself, of course, the staff. We need to look at everything with the players, the team, the squad that we have, the players that we have returning. We need to make improvements because overall this season we want much more than this. So yeah, that's it. We go back to work, and we're gonna have to look forward.
Safe trip back. We'll see you in 2025.
Thanks, kid.
Sorry, but there is a hilarious dissonance between the tone of the interview there and just party rock anthem blaring in the background. That was hilarious. But anyway, condolences and commiserations to Pacific and their group. A season well run, but not quite enough to get them beyond that first game. One more reaction we'll hear from Pacific's camp is their captain, Josh Hurd, who had to fight to get back onto the pitch this year. He missed a lot of the last couple of months of the season, managed to get himself back and healthy to be able to come off the bench and try and contribute in this game. And I thought he actually looked quite lively in a couple of minutes he played off the bench in this game, as he often is as an energetic player. But again, the road ends here for Josh Hurd and Pacific. Let's hear what he had to say. Post-game reaction brought to you by Allstate. I'm joined by Pacific captain Josh Hurd. Josh, the season has come to an end for you guys. Just this is a tough game here at York Lions Stadium. Just maybe tell me about maybe what wasn't there for you guys in this one.
Yeah, I think we got to take our chances, and they took theirs, and then that's kind of how it happened. It's weird. You fight all year, life flies at 1,000 miles an hour, and that just abruptly ends, and you're left with a lot of emotions. So, still trying to figure through all those, and we'll figure it out.
A tough one for you as well. You were out of the lineup for so long. You fight back to get back in this playoff game. Just what did you learn about this Pacific team this year, especially when you had to watch from the sidelines?
I think we had moments of resilience, man, and I think we fought hard. It's just finding more consistency. That's what we got to do, and I think that's the next step we have to take. It's the resilience is there though, because if you saw where we were at in the summer, it wasn't good. But to fight back to where we are and find a playoff or get a playoff spot, it's huge.
Yeah, tell me about that. From where you started to where you ended, just how much growth and development did you see in this team? Because it does feel like quite a different team than the way it started the season.
Totally. I mean, I think anytime you have moments of loss like this, you don't get your goal. It's a moment of it's growth and you learn, and I think that's what we'll do from it. We're not happy right now, and it's still fresh, but we're going to learn from it. We're going to get better from it, and that's the only choice we have.
Pacific FC's 2024 season has come to a close here at York, but Josh, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Yeah, and candid and honest as always, Josh Hurd, and we hope to see him around again next year with Pacific. Now we move on to this fascinating quarterfinal on Sunday at TD Place, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, Atlético Ottawa and York United. And if you haven't been fully tuned into the Canadian Premier League until now, if you're just joining us at the playoffs, we need to tell you why this Ottawa-York game is such a rivalry matchup. And it's not just because it's the Battle of Ontario. There's been some wars of words in the last couple of months between these sides. They've played some big games. It all started in the first game of the season when Atlético Ottawa came from a goal behind to win at home with their huge stars in the first game of the club that some had been branding a super team in the offseason with all their changes. But here we are now, a couple of weeks ago when York beat Ottawa 1-0 at York Lions Stadium. We got one of the spicier post-match press conferences that I've seen in the CPL, and I think we'll start us off by just playing those clips right now, Benny, if you wouldn't mind, to remind us of what happened last time these two teams met.
Not at all. No, not at all. Not at all. I think that York is probably the weakest team on the playoffs. Probably they are the weakest team. They don't have so many tools, and the way and the proposal of their football make them be a team that in normal circumstances we have to win them.
I'm an elegant, professional, mature. I have 250 games in First Division all over the world. I'm not going to get into this conversation with, what's the name? Carlos, because I don't know his view about the situation. He has all the right to say about our team. I think 7-2 is the 3 games we beat them this season. 7-2 is the score, the global score. So imagine if we were not weak. But my father taught me that the opinions of others don't determine who we are and what we are. He has his opinion, and it's fine. I don't have an opinion. I really don't have an opinion of him or Ottawa. Ottawa is a great team, They have great players. Maybe their weak side is in another place, right? So that's about it. I don't really care what he says about our team. He must concentrate on his team.
Absolute classic exchange in the Canadian Premier League, and that's why we're so excited. So many different York players we spoke to last night after the game said something along the lines of, I believe we're weak. Somebody said we're weak. We're the weakest team in the playoffs. Elijah Atakubi said it on camera for us. I think we got Dennis Selanovich to mention it. Sometimes they would just slip it in unprompted. Like, we go to Ottawa knowing that we're weaker than them. So definitely not a comment that York United players missed. They're fully aware of what's been going on and what's happening. And obviously, as Maura mentioned, he has won all 3 games he's played against Atlético Ottawa. That one Ottawa win at the start of the season was before Maura got there under Martin Nash, and still that was a close game. But a lot to be excited about for this one. We're going to get to more from Maura after Wednesday's game in a second. But Mitch, I want to start with your thoughts, because this is a game that we really wanted to see in the playoffs at some point, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, it's probably one of those where Carlos Gonzalez isn't entirely thinking when he says a comment like that, but the second that leaves his mouth, he has to know there's a pretty good chance that I'm going to be facing York United again down the road. Like, the soccer gods just seem to always kind of, that always seems to happen when someone says something like that. So I think if the pressure wasn't already on Atlético Ottawa in this game, it's even more so after a comment like that. Obviously they had the better season. They on paper have one of the best teams, I think, in Canadian Premier League history. And it just hasn't always worked out for them this season in terms of the execution there. So yeah, I think that this is going to be one of the most exciting. Like, this is what you want in a playoff match is to go in with this built-in rivalry. Obviously, like, very local teams as well. I'd imagine York will have a nice little traveling supporters group to head down into the nation's capital. We know what the Atlético Ottawa supporters bring. The fantastic atmosphere that they always have at TD Place Stadium. So this is going to be a classic, and I think one that is only going to further cement this rivalry into something really great in the Canadian Premier League. And again, these are 2 super ambitious clubs that I don't think This is going to be the first or last time they play in it, well, it will be the first time, but it won't be the last time that they play in an absolutely massive match. So, yeah, just looking forward to it. I mean, this is one that I think the possibility of was just so enticing heading into these playoffs, and now that it's a reality, I think we're all just so excited.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to get a little bit deeper into this game from a footballing perspective in a second, but I do want to just kind of tie the bow on York Pacific, because he's kind of the perfect segue for us, because Benjamin Mora did speak to KJ on OneSoccer after the game and kind of parse through his emotions after a big win and looking at this game in Ottawa. So let's finish up there and see what Mora had to say after last night's game.
With the winning coach, Benjamin Mora, after a historic day for your club, what are your overall emotions just after final whistle?
Oh, well, very happy for the boys. Very happy for the achievement today for York United, for all the club, the owners, the Pascal brothers, Jorge Villalpando, sporting director. But this is not finished. We continue the fight. We have to enjoy tonight, and tomorrow we continue working because we have a depth over there with Ottawa. Yeah.
I'll get to Ottawa in a second, but what pleased you the most about your performance?
I want to get to Ottawa tomorrow.
Let's go right now then.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, the performance of the boys, the composure, the tactical discipline that they showed all over the first half and the second half. The substitutions entered very well. We all run, we all pressed. We knew the game plan. We executed as the best as possible. Pacific is a team that doesn't stop running, they doesn't stop pressing, and we knew it. So we managed to do well today.
I'm not sure if you remember his name, but the head coach of Atlético Ottawa had some things to say about your team last time. Yeah. How excited are you to match up with them?
No, Carlos Gonzalez. I know his name very well. Yeah, it's right here. And of course, yeah, we're going to go over there.
What excites you about that matchup? You've obviously got a great record against that team.
We have nothing to lose. As I said, we're a small team trying to grow bigger. They have more responsibility. We are supposed to be the weak ones. So we have nothing to lose. They have a lot to win.
Finally, for a small team, you made a lot of noise tonight, no, with the crowd. How special will this be as you put your head on the pillow tonight?
Because it's a heartbeat of York United. I mean, we all do this for the fans. We always say, coaches go, coaches come, players go, players go, come, and the crowd is there. The crowd is there. I have many thank you for all the crowd, yes.
Coaches come and go, but you'll forever be the first to ever win a home playoff game for this club. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
See you Sunday.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
See what I mean? We're supposed to be the weak ones. That was kind of the not the only person. He was not the only person to say that from a York United perspective last night. But Mitch, kind of what Mora alluded to at the end is where I want to start here. York have nothing to lose heading into this quarterfinal. Atlético Ottawa have everything to lose, in a sense. Do you think that there's a significantly more pressure on Ottawa in Sunday's game?
Oh, for sure. And I mean, York United have nothing to lose, but they also haven't lost much against Atlético Ottawa. I think twice in 19 all-time meetings. And the only loss that Atlético Ottawa have suffered, I think, in their last 10 comes against York United. So, this is a team that's really been their bogey team over the past few years. And again, they're coming in off of this historic high. And we saw it last year with a team in Pacific that would have been even more tired, even more, road weary after traveling across the entire country following winning the 4-5 game at home to go to Halifax and win 1-0. Like there is some semblance of an advantage to having, already been in a playoff environment and winning and feeling that momentum. Now, Atlético Ottawa will be at home. Again, they have to be confident. They will be confident in their abilities. And yes, there'll be pressure on them, but this is a team that I think was built this year for that kind of pressure, and bringing that kind of pressure, had to know they were bringing that kind of pressure on themselves when they bring in that quality of player. And again, they have guys who consistently have thrived under pressure in this league, be that, CPL champion Manny Aparicio. Sissoko has won two CPL championships, 3. Anyway, Sissoko has won numerous CPL championships, maybe 2.
2.
Yes. including one in Ottawa. So
Three
they
CPL
have.
finals.
Pardon?
He played one.
Yes, yes.
He played one with Halifax.
Right. Um, quick history.
There you
Look up
go.
the podcast, but yeah, I think that the pressure was always going to be on Ottawa, kind of really regardless of where they played in these playoffs, what position they finished in, just with the way their season's gone, with the talent that they had. So again, now it's about them showing that they can deliver in that situation, and that's what's going to make this so interesting. Yeah, for a team that really should be able to, but we'll see.
Absolutely. It is a short turnaround, obviously, for York, but a much more forgiving travel schedule for them coming out of this one than it was, for example, Pacific having to head to Halifax last year after the 4 versus 5th game. It sounds like York are heading to Ottawa on Saturday. So, they'll be at home for most of the week. They'll have just time to train. They'll be in their own beds right up until match day -1. And then it's not that far a trip down the road to Ottawa, and they're feeling very confident about it. But Atlético Ottawa, as you mentioned, a team that had a lot of hype surrounding it coming into the year with all the huge moves they made in the offseason. I do think that it's a club that would be quite disappointed if they don't come out of this season with any kind of trophy, or at least getting into the final. I think they're a little disappointed that they weren't able to at least finish second in the regular season, but still very, very much alive and in play to win that cup. And they're a team that I think sneakily is maybe quite well set up to play in knockout football at the moment. They lost just one of their last 10 games. They did draw 7 of those, of course, but they're a team that has proven themselves to be incredibly difficult to beat. And I think that's going to be a big factor for them. Mitch, what do you make of Atlético Ottawa, the way they're playing at the moment, and maybe how they might set up well to play a playoff game at the moment?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we see how important defense and the defensive side of the ball is in playoffs. That's one of the things that I was talking to Moba Booley before the game, and I asked him about the team's offensive issues. He's like, those are kind of irrelevant. Like, we just have to keep a clean sheet and score 1. Like, it doesn't matter if we score 1, we score 4. We keep a clean sheet, we score, and we win. Like, they were more focused on the defensive side of the ball. Now, obviously, they go out and do that against Pacific, keep the clean sheet, score 2 ultimately, but it could have been 1, and they still would have advanced. So, this Ottawa team has been, quite solid defensively all season, and especially of late. You look at their expected goals numbers, and it's one of the best in CPL history. It's even better than their 2022 season, where they ultimately topped the CPL table and went to the final. You've got guys like Emmer Didic back there, Mateo DeBrienne, Nate Ingham in goal. Like, there's so much quality and experience back there that, yeah, I really think if they're to go deep, like, they have the foundation to be really difficult to break down, to get goals against, and that's going to set the platform to hopefully go forward. Now, that's the big question mark for me is, do they have enough to create that moment or those key moments in these games? Because, you look at their final game of the season, perhaps, which in some ways was a playoff game, was we need to win this to have an opportunity to move up into second place. And for me, they don't create nearly enough in that game. And it's kind of cagey. And if they perform like that again, you could see a York team that, again, has nothing to lose, maybe be a little more bold and take an opportunity. So, yes, I think that they're coming in good kind of playoff form, but at the end of the day, it will be, can they get their big guys to have one of those magical moments that obviously is the big difference maker in playoff football.
I think something else that excites me about this game and the timing of it is that both teams feel, in York's case, finally, like there's depth. They have options to call from. We've spoken about York. They had somebody like Frank Stirring back in the starting lineup. He was excellent last night, by the way. They'll have a fully week long rested Brian Wright, who I'd imagine might come into this game, whether he's starting or comes off the bench. There's a lot of options for York, and then meanwhile Ottawa also always have options to come into this game. They brought Balu Tabla off the bench on Saturday against Vancouver. Whether it's him, coming off the bench, or whether it's Sam Salter or whoever, there's always a lot of difference makers on that Ottawa team as well that they can bring into games late. And I think that is what's going to make this an interesting game, almost like a playoff baseball game where you kind of you don't leave a player out there for too long. You don't leave your pitcher on the mound for too long because you've got somebody that can come in and maybe you make some early substitutions because again, there's no you've got the full week off if you win. There's no tomorrow. You can't really wait around and be punished for a mistake like that. So I think that's what's fun. Mitchell, just to wrap us up on this game, just maybe look at both these teams and tell me what the path to victory is in your eyes for both Ottawa and York United in this game.
Yeah, I think if you're York, it's a lot of the same of what they did on Wednesday is just come out. It might be tough at the start. Atlético Ottawa will feel the support of their fans. Certainly, we're expecting a really good atmosphere at TD Place Stadium, as it always is, all the time, but especially for postseason football. The city really gets behind that. So if they can weather those early moments, I think that they're going to have opportunities in this game to take advantage of. So again, it's can they do that? Can they hold defensively and then take their chances? And then if you're Ottawa, it's I think it's might even be an issue that they've had all season. It's if you do get that first goal, can you go and build on it? Because so often this year we've seen them come out. I think you had the statistic where it was 17 times or something like that. 18 times they've scored first this season, and only 7 times have they scored the next goal.
Yeah.
Which for a team that was dubbed a super team and so dominant, like. That always leaves the door open for your opponent to get back into games. So I think those are the two things I'll really be watching for from these two teams. Again, if Ottawa can come out and kind of really build on anything they create early, and if York can deny that and then kind of work themselves into this game, I think with every passing moment that Atlético Ottawa don't score or don't really create chances, I think York's going to look more and more dangerous and be more and more confident that we have these guys again.
Absolutely. And as we've mentioned, the longer Ottawa go without scoring, the more that pressure continues to build on them. Anyway, that quarterfinal game at TD Place on Sunday, 1:00 Eastern time kickoff. Watch it on OneSoccer, or even better if you're in the area in the capital, buy yourself a ticket and do not miss that one. The winner of that game goes to the semifinal the following weekend, and they're going to play whichever team of Forge or Cavalry loses the qualifying semifinal this Sunday. And that's what we got to talk about next, Mitch, because we have another rivalry game on Sunday afternoon. This one at Tim Hortons Field at 4:00 Eastern, 2:00 Mountain. First place regular season winners, Forge FC, at home where they're so strong, taking on Cavalry FC, who finished second. Always seems to be these two teams. These two teams met in the final last year. They met in the qualifying semifinal last year, that time in Calgary. This just seems to be every year, doesn't it? How fun is this?
Yeah, I mean, it's super fun. I think this is the 31st match between these two sides in 6 years in all competitions, which is an absurd number of games for two teams, especially in football, to play against each other, even in an 8-team league. And, with that comes the obvious illusion that many of these games have been in knockout situations, be that Canadian Championship or, certainly CPL Playoffs, CPL Finals over the years. So, yeah, I mean, anytime these two teams play, you're getting an incredible match, and that's why it's so exciting that basically every year, we know at some point during the CPL playoffs we're going to see them play each other. And last year was even twice. I guess the first year was twice too, but it was the same. It was a 2-legged final, but nevertheless, yeah, it's appointment viewing in Canadian football at this point is Forge versus Cavalry, and it's so exciting that we're going to get it so early in the playoffs this year again.
Yeah, we certainly are, and obviously definitely not out of the question that it's the first of two times we see them, because I don't think anybody would be particularly surprised if these teams end up meeting again in a final, but you never know. Let's start with Forge, Mitch. Regular season title winners, arguably their strongest run over the course and most consistent run over the course of a regular season yet as a club, which is saying something considering that they've already won 4 CPL championships. Looking for a fifth, looking for their first three-peat, looking for their first double. Mitch, they've played 5 home playoff games in the Canadian Premier League, and they've only failed to win one of them, and that was the 2021 final against Pacific FC. Forge have never lost to Cavalry in the playoffs. You have to think that they're the more confident team going into this one, right?
Yeah, I think so. They certainly will always have the history on their side, and regardless in playoffs, like, yeah, this is a team that again, like, they were so close to losing the final last year, like within moments really, and then they turn it around and completely change things. So they're always going to feel like, regardless of where they are in the score, regardless of where they are in the game, like, they can always build their way out of it. And they've just been so incredibly good at home this year. Like, this is as outstanding of a Forge home season as we've seen, with not only in the Canadian Premier League, but obviously beating Toronto FC at home, tying against CF Montreal, starting their year with a match against Chivas Guadalajara at home. Like, they've had some really big moments, and we know how special it is to them to host a final. So they'll be really pushing for that again this year, and really wanting to go back-to-back finals at home, and how incredible that would be for their supporters. So I think that they'll certainly, I mean, you're never forging, you're never coming into a playoff game not confident that you can win. So I think that's only going to be even more the case this year.
Yeah, absolutely. 12-1-2 at home this year, by the way, which is very, very impressive. They set a club record for points at home, finished one short, I believe, of the 1 or 2 points short of the CPL record, which was Cavalry in 2019 for points at home. But a very, very strong Forge team. Obviously won the CPL Shield already, looking for more silverware. One storyline with Forge that we do need to talk about, though, is the availability of Daniel Para. We understand that he has been handed a 3-game suspension by Canada Soccer for an incident in their loss to Atlético Ottawa a couple of weeks ago. Now, we don't necessarily know for sure what the situation is. Forge have an opportunity to appeal. We're not sure whether or not anything might change with regard to that. But Mitch, if Forge are missing Daniel Para on Sunday, how much does that change the dynamic of this game and Forge's ability to defend and attack on the left side, and maybe Cavalry's ability to find that space on the right?
Yeah, there's a pretty good player that plays down the right wing. Actually, there's 2 very good players who play down the right flank for Cavalry FC. In obviously the defending player of the year, Ali Moussi, and Fraser Aird. So it's significant. It's a significant loss for a Forge team. Para has been, I think, one of their. There's been a lot of really important players to this Forge team this season, but he's been such a big ad for them in so many ways. One of the league leaders in touches and passes, in duels won. Like, this is a player that controls so much of what they do, tactically, with and without the ball. So to not have him, is going to be tough. Now, we know they have players who are able to put in real shifts over there. A guy like Aliko Labibelu has shifted into left back and gone up against, some European Championship winners and done a pretty fantastic job. So I don't think he's going to certainly fear someone like Ali Moussi or Fraser Aird if he's put in that position. But yeah, I think it's a major loss for Forge, and one to certainly just a matchup certainly to key in on in this game, and it makes it that much more interesting.
European Championship. I mean, personally, I might actually still be more scared of Ali Moussi than Lorenzo Insigne at the moment.
Oh, I was talking about Bernadeschi.
But if Bernadeschi, it was also Bernadeschi on that side. And so he was pretty good. He was pretty good in that game. Anyway, but yeah, we can't forget that until Para arrived in preseason before the CPL year, Maliko Labibelu was the left back against Chivas in both those games, and he was very, very good. So we will see how that one goes. But Mitch, let's talk about Cavalry and their chances in this game. Really, really looking to kind of slay the dragon in a sense. They've had a lot of opportunities against Forge. They lost to them twice in the playoffs last year after winning the regular season. They were leading in extra time of the final and still lost the game before penalties. This does seem to be a thing that's becoming a bit of a mental hurdle for Cavalry. They just can't seem to get past Forge in the playoffs. Let's play the optimist game, Mitchell. What maybe gives you reason to believe that this could be the year that Cavalry can do it? Is it maybe that they come in as the underdogs, they come in as a second place team? Maybe there's a little bit more pressure. What needs to go right for Cavalry for this to be their moment?
Yeah, I think they come in as the underdog, but they come in playing, some of the best football they've been playing all season over the past 3 matches. Scoring goals for fun, creating chances for fun. Moosey's firing. They've really found some good balance with Jay Herdman on the other side. Tobias Warshevsky obviously wins the Golden Boot on the final day of the season. 5 goals in his last 3. We know what Sergio Camargo can bring. So there's so much confidence in that. And, again, we've been talking so much about the defensive side of the ball and how important that is in playoffs. And this was the best defensive team in the Canadian Premier League this season. Dan Klomp was still Dan Klomp. Callum Montgomery's been really, really good. I think the player that we expected he could be when he came into the Canadian Premier League. Obviously, Camden, Aird, they have such a good backline, Carducci behind them. So I think this is a team that's really just clicking right now and playing some incredible football as they come into the playoffs. Now, of course, to maybe be a little bit more pessimistic, form has never mattered when Forge is concerned in the playoffs. They always come into the playoffs in bad form every year and then just flip a switch and all of a sudden, oh, look, we're in another final. But nevertheless, I mean, if you're Cavalry, you're really enjoying your football right now. You're playing the way that Cavalry loves to play. And, now it's just about going out and doing that on Tim Hortons field. And, I think if they can, there's a very good chance that they can walk away with a huge victory and to get to go home and host the final, which would be absolutely massive.
Yeah, I think so. I think Cavalry really, really wanted that final to be in Calgary last year. They couldn't get it done that time, and I think this is another path to do it. And I think if you're Cavalry coming out on Sunday afternoon in Hamilton, you're just thinking, why not this time? Why can't this be the one that we kind of break that barrier? And I honestly think that if Cavalry are able to just kind of take that step to beat Forge in the playoffs, then I think there's really nothing stopping them from ending up winning that cup. You see it kind of all the time in sports and in playoffs when teams have some kind of a roadblock that they can't get past. When they finally do, they're almost unstoppable for the rest of that postseason. And it could be a similar situation here, but it will be a tight game. It will be a nasty game at times. Probably it'll be a hostile game. These teams are not fond of each other. They know each other so well.
Sunday's just going to be so much fun, isn't it?
Sunday's going to be
fun.
amazing. Sunday's going to be incredible. We've got 2 unreal playoff games between teams that really, really want to beat each other, don't like each other very much. And I think that's where we're going to end it here, Mitchell, because we can talk about it all to death, but really what's going to matter is Sunday afternoon at TD Place and Tim Hortons Field. Your Atlético Ottawa, York United FC at 1 p.m. Eastern, followed by Forge FC and Cavalry FC at 4 o'clock Eastern, 2 Mountain. The winner of that Forge Cavalry game goes directly to the CPL final on November 9th. They will host that game. The loser of that game will play the winner of Ottawa versus York in the other semifinal the following weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be crazy. I'm really excited for it. We're going to be all over it at campl.ca. If you're in either Hamilton or Ottawa or anywhere else for that matter, if you're in Calgary or Toronto and feel like making a trip, I really encourage you to. It's always good to have an away day in football. Tickets available for both games. And if not, make sure you join us on OneSoccer watching both of these games, because it will be a lot of fun, I think, as will be the rest of this postseason. Again, we'll be back with you next week. And as always, check out everything you need to read at campl.ca or at CPL Soccer on social media. Thank you to Volkswagen, as usual, for sponsoring the CPL Newsroom. And thank you all for listening and or watching. And we'll see you very, very soon.